Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Yvonne Cerrone speaking to you, and today we are here with a new topic at the Spaceship of the Mysteries. We aim to achieve today, as we do every week, to think deeply in order to reach a profound reflection on a particular topic. Thank you for accepting our invitation to tune in with us today. It is our intention that the topic that we bring you today serves to bring light and clarity into our lives. Though it is a harsh reality to accept, it is true that sometimes we don't have a clear view over different aspects of our life. Sometimes we have flashes of understanding, but many times we don't even have that. It could happen that we are able to grasp some understanding when we come to understand things that were so blurry to us before. Unfortunately, it is mainly done through a mechanical process of the mind. But if we make some conscious effort, only then we will be able to transfer this understanding into comprehension. What is comprehension? It is illumination. And what does it illuminate? It enlightens our life and helps us to walk on the correct path. That is why today we have brought you this topic entitled The Art of Listening. A great writer and philosopher, Samael Aun-Weor, says, "The degenerated mind is unable to identify what is new. It does not know how to listen. It is conditioned by self-love." That is why we must recognize what kind of thinking mind we have. At times, the mind has even been addressed as a degenerated mind. And why a degenerated mind? Because sometimes the mind behaves like a little demon. And what sort of thoughts does the mind process? Many of them are about negative things. And what does the mind do? It goes back into the past, and by doing this, it prevents us from seeing anything new. It is unable to perceive that anything has changed, or that changes are going to take place, that many changes are about to occur. And when we are not aware of all these, then we are not good vessels for listening. And what is happening? That we are conditioned by self-love. We love ourselves too much. We love our thoughts, our ideas, our lifestyle. Now that we have the opportunity to come together to reflect on this issue, it is important that we look inward, because the key is to put in order things that are messed up. It is like when the house is in disorder and you dedicate yourself to putting things in order and are very tidy. At the end, when we work really hard and see the final outcome, we feel very satisfied and happy because our house is clean and tidy and you see it more beautifully. This program is called the Spaceship of Mysteries because life in itself is a real mystery, because the mind is a mystery. We need to put order within ourselves to begin to glimpse the mystery. But you have to be willing to do so, because getting on the special spaceship represents a willingness to make changes. It means to be aware that we need to move to other levels of life. You have to be calm, serene, and something very important. You have to be very attentive to what we are talking about today. We are going to tell minute details on everything needed to learn how to listen. It is up to us, each one of us, to start practicing to really listen. We will find out that knowing how to listen is something very interesting. Everyone wants to be heard, but it's very difficult to find someone who knows how to listen, to be willing to listen patiently to what one has in mind. That is why he who listens to his friends, his boss, his family, is a person who everybody turns to. He is a person who everybody is looking for to spend time with. He becomes a very loving person. It is time to listen, to be attentive, because paying attention generates balance. It produces serenity. These times we are living in are in such great need of practicing serenity. And we achieve this when we are mindful of our breathing. We practice serenity when we learn to listen to nature. Really, listen to it. Not being in the middle of nature and thinking about the problems we're going through. So knowing how to listen is very difficult. Few are the people who really know how to listen. Though it is important to listen, it is difficult because the past conditions us, because there are too many thoughts, because the mind does not want to be still. When we talk about the art of listening, it is necessary to be aware that we have to discipline the mind. So whatever we do, let's do it consciously. Let's listen carefully. When I speak, it might seem that people are listening. If I were able to see everyone who's listening right now to the spaceship of the mysteries, it would seem that everyone is listening. But it is very likely that someone who's really busy, that would be our secretary, we ought to know that behind or within us there is a secretary that is interpreting every word uttered. What secretary are we talking about? What kind of secretary is it? In Gnostic philosophy, the secretary is known as the eyes, or our defects, our darkness. The Egyptians called them the red demons of Seth, or the 7 deadly sins, as it is known in Christianity. That's why you have to be attentive to that secretary. It has a peculiar way to interpret everything and can create chaos and even wage wars. Not knowing how to listen could become a serious problem. You have to pay full attention if you're committed to know how to listen. You have to be here and now. You have to practice living in the present. We must take ownership of our life at this moment. And if we succeed, that will inspire us to live from moment to moment. Whoever lives from moment to moment connects with joy, with the pleasant joy. What is the dark secretary's job? It does not live outside. It lives inside us. That dark secretary misinterprets the spoken words of the one who speaks, the one who prays. It represents our innermost ignorances, our innermost defects. The interpretations are according to our prejudices, preconceptions, fears, pride, anxieties, ideas, or memories. This same creepy secretary is the one that has gotten us into trouble due to its poor work performance. The normal thing is that when we are in a meeting, we are not listening, we are distracted, and you, dear listener, are you listening to me? Are you distracted? What do we listen to? To our ego, to our psychological flaws. It might seem we are apparently listening to the truth, but actually we are listening to a big lie. That is why we need to be in a state of alertness, free from the past, in a state of receptivity. This is the only way to be safe from that bad omen secretary. What if there are bad omens? A bad omen is to accept everything that the mind says. When we let the mind wander, it becomes gloomy. When Jesus enters Jerusalem on the donkey, it means that Jesus already has control over his mind. The divinity has control over the mind. So, the one who comes to have control over the mind is indisputably very close to connecting with the truth. And what is the truth? It's what frees us. When the mind is conditioned by memories, it only repeats what it has accumulated. Repeating what has been accumulated in this life makes life very uncomfortable. Have we noticed it? There are times when our whole life has become very repetitive, thinking the same way others do. The mind is conditioned by many events of the past. The mind is totally conditioned by many yesterdays. That is, what happened yesterday becomes the lens through which we see the present and the future. we are not capable of letting go of the past. The important thing to remember about today's topic is that we ought to practice. It may be that we are not very much into the topic, it may be, but do not forget to practice. You may have preferred some of the many important topics we have previously discussed. It is quite fine. But what truly matters is that we practice. If we are doing a listening practice, we are doing very well. It means that our meeting is reaching its purpose. Our mind, therefore, conditioned by many yesterdays, can only see through the blurry lenses of the past, and we remain bottled looking back at what happened previously. Friends of the spaceship of the mysteries, if we really want to listen, we must live in accordance with the philosophy of momentariness. That is why this philosophy is to live in the present. It is urgent to live from moment to moment, without the concerns of the past, without the plans of the future. It is very normal to see worried people. We have plenty of worries in the family, and couples, and countries. Worries abound everywhere. It is normal to see people attached to those concerns of the past, present, and future. There are people worried at this precise moment, thinking about what their death will be like. We worry a lot about the future, but nevertheless, what is important is the present. The truth is the unknown from moment to moment. And we find that truth if we practice the art of being present. Our minds must be alert and full attention, free of prejudices and concepts, so that in the end we attain serenity. That is the key, to be alert, aware of what we think, not to wander without direction. No matter where we are, we must be in the here and the now. It is necessary and of profound urgency to know how to listen. It is the fundamental, and especially in these moments, to know how to live wisely, to refine or reaffirm our inner senses. We must be aware that there are precious virtues within us. Right now, human values are bankrupt. If we don't believe it, let's look into our hearts and from there see wisely what is happening in the world right now. It is clear to observe the total bankruptcy of human values. What is the use of having great academic formation if we do not know how to discover the new from moment to moment? Now we ask, I ask you, dear friend, do you know how to live the moments of this moment? Are you living according to the past? Are you thinking that the past is going to come back? The past is past, and the key is not to judge. One of the greatest sufferings is the desire to return to live the way we did in the past. On the opposite, living from moment to moment produces a fragrance of flowers in our lives which we must enjoy with the heart. Furthermore, it produces silence. And what is silence? Silence is peace, harmony, hope, humility, joy. Silence is vibrating with the precious pearls that are within us. Silence is learning to empty the mind for the divine to lay there. But with so many prejudices, with so many memories, we do not allow anything new to come to us. It is impossible to be polished when we do not know how to listen. The degenerate minds, which are the consequence of an obsolete way of living, do not know how to listen, nor do they know how to discover the new. The mind understands things in a wrong way due to the absurd interpretations of the satanic secretary that dwells within us. So, dear listeners, being polished is very difficult. It requires your full attention. Someone can be very polished in fashions, in suits, in dresses, in cars, on cell phones, on Facebook, on Twitter, and yet be very rude, rough, and annoying on the inside. Have we seen it? Most likely we've seen it, and it happens to us all at some point. We do not have to be concerned about having gone through a situation like that. The important thing is to learn from mistakes done. Are we worried about making mistakes? If we learn from mistakes, we get a lot of wisdom. The problem is that we repeat the same mistakes all over again. The problem is that we do not want to listen. So being polished is very difficult and requires full attention. In the same way, knowing how to listen is somewhat difficult or quite difficult. It all depends, because when we practice and practice, what happens? That you start falling in love with the art of listening. But of course, this practice is a discipline. It is not that we are going to achieve it overnight. Learning to listen is a timely and constant practice. Dear listeners, whoever knows to live from moment to moment knows how to live on the path of true refinement, how to live on the path that leads to the light, how to live on the path that leads to wisdom. The important thing is to live with serenity. Whoever has a receptive mind, upright, not dispersed, whoever has an alert mind walks the path of true couth, true order, true clarity, but this can only be achieved with hard work. You have to be very careful with your mind. The mind always wants to get us in trouble. The mind always wants to deceive us. At this moment, you're listening to the program here, and it may be that your mind takes you to the past. You may be thinking about the future, or thinking about some problem, or thinking about the problem of humanity, or money, of this or that. Before we continue, we'd like to make an announcement. We inform those interested in this science that there are centers in almost all the cities of this world. These centers have different ways to deliver the Gnostic teachings. If you have a serious interest in this knowledge, you will find that there is a path to get a better solution to the problems. We are talking about learning to develop creative understanding. Coming back to our topic today, we are talking about the art of listening, and I hope we all are enjoying it. We enjoy many things. We enjoy life a lot. We really enjoy our relationship with our parents, our loved ones. In these times when we have to stay at home confined, there is a good opportunity to enjoy listening to the people around us. Could it be that we are not doing this the way we should? We have to learn to listen to our loved ones. When we truly learn how to listen, we realize that we get into something deeper. When we do truly listen, we will be able to listen to ourselves. We will learn to listen to our heart, to listen to your whole body. And what's more, we will learn to listen to nature, to the little birds, to our solar system, to the universe, and to the superior dimensions. In the art of listening, there are levels and levels. A great example about listening is someone I'd like to talk about briefly. He is a worldwide leader who was an amazing listener. He is known as one of the most passionate advocates of justice in the world. He got recognition of great leaders. I am referring to Mahatma Gandhi. Why have we brought him into this topic? Because his principles of nonviolence have been followed by many civil rights leaders around the world. Gandhi was born in India in 1869 and died in 1948. How was his life? When he was 19, he went to England to study law. When he finished his studies, he got a position in South Africa where he worked as a lawyer, and it was there where he suffered racial discrimination. What did Gandhi do? Well, once he got back to India, Gandhi led the fight for independence of India from the British Empire. Gandhi organized. Listen, please. Gandhi organized nonviolent civil disobedience protests. As a consequence of this action, Gandhi was put in jail several times. Now let us take a moment to ask ourselves, what are our protests? What are our protests like? Each one of us ought to seek an innermost answer. Continuing with Gandhi, what was the outcome in regard to what we have been talking about? Well, the people of India began to follow and love Gandhi. It is very clear that whoever gives a lot of love is loved in return. He who loves deeply learns how to deliver this love, and even more, learns truly to love, to really love, which is love in a more meaningful and much deeper way. And if Mahatma Gandhi were with us, what would he say about these times? Quoting his words from texts that were written by himself, Gandhi would say, "We are not yet in a civil war, but we are very close to it." Another of his statements, "The person who is not at peace with himself will be a person at war with the whole world." If we continue with more of Gandhi's quotes, "If you want to change the world, change yourself." Wise words from Gandhi, and Gandhi wrote this one too. Every time you face an opponent, conquer him with love. And now I make this comment. What do we do when we face an opponent? How do we do it? Do we react with rage, as we were taught, as we have heard? Do we react according to the culture we have been shaped by? Because according to the culture, it is to respond with a defensive attitude, by attacking with anger. And what else would Gandhi say about these moments? Gandhi practiced ahimsa, the nonviolence. But let's keep listening. Listen to this with attention. What happened to Gandhi? He was killed in a meeting. A terrorist shot him to death. Some details about Gandhi. He was nominated 5 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. When he died, his funeral procession was more than 8 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide. After his death, Great Britain issued a stamp in his honor. Gandhi sent a letter to Hitler requesting him not to proceed with his will of outbreaking a world war. He is often called Mahatma. Mahatma is a term that means great soul. Let us take a moment to make a brief but profound reflection on what we have been talking about in Mahatma Gandhi. What did happen about Gandhi's deeds? That is, as a society, many times we don't really listen. And what is worse, as it happened with Gandhi, we not only did not listen to him, but we even took his life. The same setting occurs inside us. They are similar situations. We are not listening to what is going on around us. The important thing is to recognize and to avoid making more mistakes. When we truly listen, we are able to listen to the voice of our Heavenly Father. When we make a sincere effort to listen, we are able to recognize what the voice of darkness sounds like. It is marvelous to attain this experience because then we don't make mistakes. That's why we extend an invitation to open ourselves to what is new and free ourselves from prejudice, from fanatical jealousy. It is hard to understand the passionate statement of, "This is my religion, this is yours." It is a pity to see religious people fighting against each other, hating each other. That is why we should open ourselves to what is new, to abandon preconceptions, prejudices, fanatical jealousy. Whoever succeeds in doing so, he will march triumphantly along the legitimate path of refinement. As we mentioned before, the degenerate mind lives bottled up in the past, in preconceptions, pride, self-love, prejudices, and so on. Under this condition, we live bottled up in many inconsistencies with an incoherent mind. What is surprising is that even in this condition, the mind wants to understand. So, of course, with this racket in our mind, there is no serenity. There is no tranquility. The mind degenerates, and of course, it does not know how to listen. It is conditioned by many events of the past, the future, or the present. Most likely, it gets stuck in the past or in the future, never in the present, unless one practices the power of momentariness, the power of the art of listening. If along the program we have been practicing the art of listening, we have accomplished the task. What we pursue is to set aside time to sit down calmly and reflect and practice, and vice versa. Dear listeners, we come to the last part of this topic of another interesting program of the Spaceship of the Mysteries. The important thing is that first we gain the understanding, then we get to the comprehension. Today, our quest has been to learn how to listen. Let's talk now about the mind. Let's reflect on one of the parables of Jesus about the old wineskins. Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. This means that we must take care of our minds. We have to be selective in what we put in our minds. We have to have a new mind. Fanatics of materialism do not accept the new, and what is worse, they do not allow us to accept the new. The fanatics of materialism must be singled out to recognize them. We have to be very careful. We have also become materialistic at some degree. The problem resides within us. When we talk about these issues, it is not to point the finger towards the nearest to us. The point is to recognize our inner poverty. When we recognize our own inner poverty, we have to be aware that we can turn it around and create a great wealth within ourselves. That is why during these times in which we find ourselves, we need a psychological rebellion that frees us from the lies of the mind and connects us with the great reality. Self-love does not allow us to be different. We love ourselves too much, and that is a big problem. Loving ourselves very much, loving everything we are, and so our mind degenerates from not knowing how to listen. In other words, we do not accept anything new. That comes from loving ourselves so much, which is called self-love. There is a lot of self-love around. So minds that do not know how to discover the new do not accept reality. They are bottled up in self-love. To better illustrate all of you the sentiment, let me tell you a story. In Greek mythology, there is a story about Narcissus. It was said that he was the handsomest, most graceful, majestic, breathtaking man. All women and men fell in love with him, but he rejected them all. Among the young people wounded by his love was the nymph Echo, who had disgusted Hera, and for that reason Hera had cast a spell on the unfortunate nymph. Echo would only be able to repeat the last words addressed to her and never speak on her own again. For For this reason, she was unable to speak to Narcissus for her love. One day, Narcissus was with his hunting companions in the woods. He ended up being separated from his group. When he realized he was by himself, he started to yell, "Is anyone here?" Echo, who'd been wandering around the same woods, repeated those last words, "Here, here, here, here." Unable to see her hidden among the trees, Narcissus yelled, "Come, come, come." After answering, Echo left the trees with open arms. Narcissus cruelly pushed her away. Echo, heartbroken, ran away and hid in a cave, not eating or sleeping, just pining for Narcissus. After some time, Echo began to grow skinny from starvation until her body withered away entirely into dust, leaving nothing but her voice. Later, the goddess of revenge, Nemesis, punished Narcissus for not accepting the unrequited love of Echo. Nemesis caused him to fall in love with his own reflection he saw in a lake. Narcissus refused to leave the reflection of himself, and unable to separate himself from his image, he ended up throwing himself into the waters. Therefore, we must understand that on many occasions we become narcissistic. We have minds that do not know about these refinements. We have rough minds. We urgently need a fundamental education to realize the importance of how to listen, to teach us how to live wisely. There is no use in spending 10 or 15 years stuck in schools, colleges, and universities if when leaving these institutions we are internally and truly ignorant in our thoughts and ideas, sentiments, and customs. Fundamental education is urgently needed so that the mental coronavirus is eliminated from us. That is why we invite our listeners. We invite a true revolution, a revolution of peace, a revolution of love to our fellow men as to ourselves. The past is past, and it has already paid off. We need to understand its deep meaning from moment to moment. At the end of the day, what we see today in the United States is nothing more than the reflection itself of the human being. Where is your worst enemy? I asked you all, what is your worst enemy? History is showing us that the worst enemy dwells within us. Muhammad Ali condemned being taken as a soldier to war because he said that the Vietnamese were not his enemies. He said that his enemy was within the United States, within the innermost. History teaches us that when there are troubles within our house, in our family, with our partner, in our country, let's not blame the external enemy. Please, obviously there's always external enemies, but that is not the essence of the problem. If your conscience is at peace and within your family there is peace. If there is peace in your country, then and only then, nor external enemies, neither viruses nor bacteria, nothing will harm us. That has been everything in the Spaceship of the Mysteries. Yvonne Saran has been talking to you. May peace be with everyone. Thank you very much.